I want to walk you through now a little bit so you can get an idea of what this authentic songwriting method is, okay? And I developed this because I am an artist and I was tired of going to songwriting classes or working with producers that didn't understand me, they didn't get me, and they didn't hear me, and I could barely hear myself above the noise after a while. If you've been in the industry for a while, you tend to really start second guessing yourself. And I needed to create a method that I would have wanted that has that deeper view and that, you know, is paying attention to these kinds of things that we're talking about. So that's what this method is. So as a quick exercise, and I want to make sure I stay on time because I want to get to the Q&A. So I'm not sure I'm actually going to do this exercise right now. I want to walk you through this. We're going to get to this. We're going to be talking about this the whole time. I'll get back to it if I have time. It's number 44. Okay. Let me walk through this first. So in this method, we start with the A&R profile form, and the A&R profile form is in your Google Drive, and everyone has one. And most people say, I know Melanie, I think you said you spent 2 hours on it. That's not unusual. You can spend a lot of time on this, and you should, because it is a full dump of your listening history, your obsessions, your interests. They can be diverse, as you know, you listened to classical, you got into heavy metal, you did jazz, you did blah, blah, blah. I want to hear everything. I want to know everything. You can't tell me enough, basically, or you can't tell me too much. I want to know it all because it helps me get inside of you and the way you think and what you like and where you are in music. Your favorite artists, your favorite songs, your favorite producers, if you have them, songwriters, if you have them, your favorite sound, genre mixing, your vision. I want to get inside your vision. We even go into the wild card, which is in the profile, which you may not know how to fill that out. I'll help you with that. Wild card means something that doesn't match everything else. It's kind of off to the left or off to the right. It's off center, right? Good example is an artist, Ayla Nario. Does anybody know Ayla? So I worked with her in her A&R before she got signed. And it actually was the thing that really catapulted her forward because she was writing music that was just kind of staying here and the melodies were just kind of staying here. You know what we located in the A&R? It was incredible. Her wild card, the thing that she was obsessed with that was as far from festival hippie love music as possible was ABBA. Okay, she loved the band ABBA. And I'm like, oh my God, Ayla, you're not putting those melodies in your songs. And she was like, poof, light bulb, epiphany. She started putting that in her songs and boom, it took off. Okay, it can be as simple as that. But like, you might not have located that, right? And the fact that it was the melody from ABBA, it could be the lyric. I was working with Rainsford. Does anyone know Rainsford? So I wrote like a 22 song catalog with her and got her record deal starting out. And it was really interesting because she grew up in Asheville, North Carolina, and she listened, her mom, Andy McDowell, and they listened to all range of music, but her mom was kind of obsessed with Johnny Cash. So they listened to a lot of Johnny Cash. Now, how we brought the wild card in was because she was doing like more like kind of alternative pop, so to speak. And we brought Johnny Cash in as the subject of a song. Okay, so that's how we brought the wild card in. So she wrote a song about Johnny Cash, but she wasn't doing country music. So it was just really quirky and interesting, right? We also get into the psychology. So in the A&R profile, so A&R is artist and repertoire. I do my own old school version of A&R. I don't do typical label A&R that they do now, which is really finding a market for the music and all of that. And that's more kind of slapping it on top. I want to bring it from inside the artist out. So A&R is the process of matching the artist to the material. And if you really want to understand the beauty of old school A&R, read Clive Davis's book, The Soundtrack of My Life. Anybody read that? Mendy's nodding her head. So yes, Beck has read that. He talks about the ways in which he did this kind of process, and it's very detailed. A good example is Barry Manilow, for example. Like Barry Manilow is one of the first songwriters coming up back in the day, because, you know, Elvis had a whole team writing for him. You know, there are waves like this in music, but back at that time, there were, you know, Mike Stoller and Jerry Lieber, Mike Lieber and Jerry Stoller. I always get mixed up. They were writers. There was a whole stable of writers that wrote for artists, right? And Barry Manilow comes up and he's writing his own songs. The Beatles came up and they were writing their own songs. You know, it was kind of like, oh, this is a revolution. They're writing their own songs. Wow. And so as a result of that, there was a song that Clive found back in the day. Labels in their A&R department were hunting for songs for artists that would catapult them into the public eye, that had enough energy and match their personality enough that it would be a fit. Cyndi Lauper is a good example I'll talk about in a minute. But Barry Manilow, Clive had a song for him that was written by someone else called I Write the Songs. It was the most distasteful thing to Barry, because he was a songwriter and he's like, I can't sing a song called I Write the Songs that I didn't write. So it was this tiff back and forth with them for 10 years. Finally, Barry just demoed the frickin' thing to get Clive off his back. The label heard it, put it out, it catapulted him into superstardom. Cyndi Lauper, I remember Cyndi. She was actually studying with my voice teacher at the time. She was in a band called Blue Angel back in the day. And I'd go to see her at the old Ritz, which is the old Webster Hall. And she could sing for days. She could hold a note forever, for miles. And she was an incredible performer, but she did not have the song. Okay, she did not have the song that was doing it. Rick Chertoff, a well-known producer, comes along and he has this song called, can anybody guess what that is? What is the song? What was the song? Put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Exactly. Rick Chertoff had that song. They matched it with Cyndi. It was a perfect fit for her quirky personality with her spiky hair and record earrings. She'd wear records in her ears. And she did that way before. That was like who she was. So this whole journey that we're going on is to find those elements of who you are. Okay. We take who you are and we magnify or amplify that. But it has to be authentic. It has to be true to you. This, to me, is the true art of A&R. So in the A&R profile, we go into your psychology. I start with the 3 defining moments that are the 3 moments in your life, if you were to pick, that were the most powerful, from which you were never the same again. I'm sure you can call them up in 2 seconds, right? So you write out your defining moments. And then in that way, we're looking for the bigger themes. Even if there's sad stuff, don't worry about it. You can't tell me too much. I've been to hell and back in my life. And I mean that in the best of ways. Nothing you can tell me will shock me. You're supposed to tell me this. Okay. Been in therapy for 35 years, right? Don't have to worry about that. I'm here. I can hold that for you. Right. And I think people in class like Rhoda and Melanie and Beck, and you can all vouch for that, right? It's for you, right? So don't worry about that. From those defining moments, you're going to write song concepts from them. Like Mindy's talking about, oh, I located this thing. I'm not done with that. I need to write about that. Write out your song concept. We have a particular method that we use that is called the song concept. And this is all on your A&R profile. You don't have to remember this. The song concept, the backstory, and then we assign a reference track to it. And I'll explain that more. I just wanted to give a deeper view into how detailed this is. And this is just the beginning, okay? The reference track, I'm gonna get into that later in class. I'm not gonna go into that so much because it's more just an example of what the sound, you can have 2 different reference tracks, you can, but basically giving the songwriter an idea, where are we going with this? You're all coming from a different vision musically. We can handle all of it. I've been in just about every genre that has existed, although I have not produced hip hop. I will cop to that. but I've worked with a lot of hip hop artists as well. But we can handle any genre. I've worked with classical composers. I have a rich background in classical and folk and jazz and R&B and folk and rock and country and, you know, all of those. We need some point of reference, especially if you're writing with our writers. Okay. So that's the beginning of it. Then when you go into the session, we take that profile. The A&R person is myself and Amy Cooney. Her artist name is Ames. We do A&R here. Amy follows my A&R direction. So we review your form before the session. And then during the session, we create a fresh document that is called an A&R profile. That's the A&R profile form that you fill out. A&R profile, which has at the top, we identify your sound and direction, and then we go into the defining moments, and the song concepts are on that profile, not the defining moments. That's private, that's with us, between us. But the song concepts, the backstory, and the reference track, and that is what is given to the writer. So in a sense, it's a much more detailed view. They get an inside view of you instantly. One of the problems with co-writes in the industry is it's like, spend the first half hour going, what do you want to write about? I don't know. What do you want to write about? I don't know. Tell me about your life. And the songwriter is trying to pull it out of the artist, and it like takes forever. This cuts all of that out, and you have the opportunity to go much deeper on it. Okay. It's a much more successful song as a result. Okay. And this profile is something, whether you co-write with our writers or not, if you're in the featured seat, that you can take and give to your producer for your next project. And it's basically saying, you're in control, you're carving the path. Then they love it. If it's not an egotistical producer, they love it, because then they can take that and as a starting place for your record, which is far more successful because they have more direction. One of the problems between the artist and the producer is that you're both artists. So when you have a conversation, you guys are talking about the emotion, you're talking about the feeling. But if you're not a producer, you're not talking in producer terms, and it can really throw the project off. And then you're like, that doesn't sound anything like what I said, right? So this can be really, really helpful. Then we go into the co-write, and the co-writing experience. I've created this specific co-write. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So if anyone else is using it, they learned it here. We do a prep session, which is a 30-minute session where you meet with the co-writer, and they've reviewed your form, and their direction is to choose the song concept that they relate to the most personally, so that you've already got your 3 or 4 song concepts that are very powerful. And then they come to the table, and I ask them to choose the one they relate to the most, so that the co-write can be the most successful, right? Then about a week later, whenever it is, you have the co-write for 2 hours. And then you have probably 10 days to 2 weeks later, you have the finalizing session where you finish up. And the beautiful thing about this is we're following your vision. We're maintaining your voice at all times. We're here to help you write that song that really lives inside of you. Okay. That's why it works really well, is we're really looking into you as a person. Back to what Grace said, that we're really focusing on who you actually are, whole body, mind, and soul, right? Great songs breathe life into others' experiences. This was the quote I was looking for. So Naomi, I say Naomi Goldberg, it's Natalie Goldberg. Really amazing writer, and she says, this is beautiful. You should frame this and put it on your writing desk and look at it every time before you write. Write what disturbs you, what you fear, what you have not been willing to speak about. Be willing to be split open. Write what you are afraid to say. If you are not afraid of the voices inside of you, you will not fear the critics outside of you. We are important, and our lives are important. magnificent, really. And the details are worthy to be recorded. This is how writers must think. This is how we must sit down with pen in hand. We were here, we are humans, and this is how we lived. Amen. Amen.